Okay, let's talk a little bit about one of the biggest rivalries in all of soccer, El Clasico. So El Clasico is a rivalry in Spain within the Spanish Premier League, or La Liga as it's called. We're going to watch a short video that features an author that wrote a pretty comprehensive book about the rivalry. And I want you to, I think from the video, even though it's a few years old, I think you'll get a flavor for some of the background to this rivalry and how it's evolved into the modern day.
Sid, you've just written an enormous tome about Barcelona and Real Madrid and their rivalry. What is it about this particular game that makes it more than just a big football match?
I think you can almost look at it as an international game played between two club teams. I think that's the fundamental thing, is that this is a game that has a political and social symbolism, which ties into questions of national identity, ties into questions of history in a country that's been through a civil war and a dictatorship, and therefore carries a huge, if you like, emotional, ideological and kind of patriotic baggage with it. And that means that it's always huge beyond just the football. And then if you add into that the fact, of course, that they're arguably the best two clubs in the world, and certainly they're the two clubs who have the best two players in the world confronting each other.
Is there a danger sometimes that it gets overtaken by the Ronaldo-Messi situation? Because that would be, in a way, to undermine so much more about this game.
Yeah, Messi and Ronaldo have come to kind of represent the two clubs in a way that the rivalry almost gets reduced down to these two men, and there is a danger in that, because they have also got other brilliant players. They're also clubs with such a huge history that while these two men, by the time they retire, will have been absolutely fundamental players in the history of the two clubs, there is still a history there with Alfredo Stefano and Johan Cruyff and countless other great players. But then it also works really well in terms of the narrative now, because we've got two players who seem to represent their club, not just because they are the best player at each club, but they seem to be symbolic of what those clubs believe they are. Certainly from a Barcelona perspective, so you've got Leo Messi, this small, quiet guy who came up through the youth system and is the best player in the world. And of course Barcelona fans love to embrace that idea, and they love to embrace the idea of Ronaldo being the one that was very expensive, the one that loves himself, the one that is not quite as good as Messi. From a Madrid fan's point of view, it embraces that idea that they think, look at Barcelona fans always taking the moral high ground, and it's not like that Ronaldo is actually far more humble and far more serious about his football than sometimes people think. So it creates a really nice, if oversimplistic, narrative of two players who are their clubs.
This is going to be a Clasico which is a new experience for both teams, particularly in the case of Bale and Neymar, who are the two sort of almost Galacticos that have come in now.
Yeah,
brace themselves for even just the noise that you have to get used to, which is extraordinary in this game.
Absolutely, and the noise will be extraordinary, and that was one of the things that was so striking about the first time that Luis Figo went back. It was the sheer noise. It was the fact that you actually can't hear anything because you're just kind of surrounded by this wall of whistling and boos. And I think for Bale, this will be a genuinely big deal, and this will feel different to anything else. And there's a nice remark, Michel Salgado saying that he told David Beckham, trust me, you've never seen anything like this. You might have done a Manchester United, Liverpool, you might have done a Manchester Derby, you've played in the European Cup final, but nothing will prepare you for this. And it doesn't, sometimes because of crazy things that go on, like pigs' heads being thrown on the pitch, but also because of the build-up to it, the fact that it feels like it consumes the entire country, for not just for the game, not even just for the week, but for the whole season. It's about the two Clásicos, or the four, or the six, depending on what competitions they meet each other in. So I think for both Neymar and Bale, and Neymar has come from Brazil, of course, I think this will be different, and it will be a game that they'll be absolutely determined to leave a mark on, because also, of course, bear in mind the pressure that's on Bale generally for being the most expensive player there's been. All of that pressure will be blown away by a good performance in the Clasico. It will effectively allow him to then have a soft run through the next 3 or 4 games, no matter what happens.
Given the way it consumes the country, as you say, given that rivalry and that shared history and the intensity of it all, could you say in a way that these two clubs couldn't really exist without the other?
I think that's the key point, that the relationship is partly symbiotic. And there's a quote from Florentino Perez in which he says something along the lines of, if Barcelona didn't exist, we'd have to invent them. And I asked Joan Laporta, the former Barcelona president, whether this was true, and he said, Yeah, I think that's probably right, and it's one of the few times you can catch a Barcelona president and a Real Madrid president agreeing with each other. And definitely there is a need to judge themselves by the other. And there's a quote that Raul gave in 2002 when Real Madrid won the European Cup at a time when Barcelona were immersed in crisis after the departure of Figo. And he made some comment along the lines of, it felt like there was something missing with no. And it's as if you need them both to be at the very, very best level to really count. And that's one of the reasons I think why the rivalry has become so huge, because although there was a period in the 1950s when they were the best two teams in the world, this might be the first time since the 1950s when they could legitimately claim to be on such a high level, both of them at the same time. And yet, of course, they're never on a high level both at the same time, because even if they are the two best clubs in the world, if one is better than the other, that seesaw tips, and it feels as if the other one's at the bottom. Xavi Hernandez describes it as a scales, a balance. You can't both be up at the same time.
All right, so we get a nice summary there, and some very key words that Sid talked about there as it relates to the rivalry and the context behind the rivalry. I think that's the important thing, or one of the most important things to understand here. You heard him talk about, use the word derby. He was referring to the Manchester derby, which is Manchester United versus Manchester City. If you're not familiar with that term, it's a good time to talk about it. A derby is traditionally a match between two clubs in the same city, or geographically very close to each other. And that's usually how you hear the term used, but it's also used sometimes as kind of a synonym for rivalry, right? Although I would say that it has much more of a geographic element to it, like I just described, than the word rivalry, which doesn't always have a geographic basis to it, whereas derby does. It's a pretty common term when we talk about soccer. Now, as it relates to El Clasico, these two clubs, you have Real Madrid and you have Barcelona, not in the same city, right? Although they are, of course, in the same country. They're not even in the same regions of Spain, and that is key to this rivalry. You heard Sid Lowe talk about national identity and how each club represents a different national identity. You heard him mention the Civil War at the beginning, right? So as these two teams' identity exists, what they represent is you have one team, Real Madrid, that was favored by the ruling party at the time during the Franco regime. So Franco was the ruler of Spain for decades and decades, the king of Spain, if you will, and he very much favored Real Madrid. Madrid is the capital of Spain, and he even bestowed that title of royal on the club, which is what Real means. And he created these rules that soccer clubs had to follow, or football clubs, if you will, within the Spanish league. But he did not hold Real Madrid. They were exempt from these rules that were created. So they sort of got to play by their own rules, for lack of a better word. Whereas Barcelona, FC Barcelona, of course, in Barcelona, is in the Castilian region of Spain, and within Catalonia, there's always been, well, I shouldn't say always, but since the Franco regime and even before, there's this sense of wanting to be independent from Spain, wanting to have their own country. So instead of being a region in Spain, they want to be Catalonia and be their own independent nation. You see the flag of the region of Catalonia here. You also see that the flag is within the crest of the football club, Barcelona, FC Barcelona. You see it represented there. Within their crest, you also see the crown representing Real Madrid's crest. And so you've got these contrasting political identities, right, for these two clubs. One representing the left-wing revolutionaries that want to break away from Spain, that being FC Barcelona. And then you've got Real Madrid that very much represents the nationalism, Spanish nationalism, central government within the capital of Madrid. Galacticos was another term that you heard him use. What does Galacticos refer to? Well, he's talking about Real Madrid, and that being their strategy to build the team is to go and get the best players in the galaxy. That's what Galacticos means. No matter where they're from, it doesn't matter. Real Madrid wants to go out. They're kind of like, if you're from the U.S. and a fan of U.S. sports, they're like the Yankees, right? The Yankees are going to go out and they're just going to try and buy the biggest free agents and use their economic power to try and build the best team. That's a different strategy from what Barcelona does to try and build their club. Now, Barcelona has also bought some huge superstars in the last few years, but traditionally they're more known for bringing players up through their club system, and that's what the author was referring to in terms of the pride around Messi. You know, not only being such a great player, but the fact that he came up through FC Barcelona's system is a source of pride for that particular club and how they like to operate. Then you heard him use this term symbiosis to describe the rivalry, and you heard him talk about how he asked one club president, hey, if the Real Madrid club president, if Barcelona didn't exist, would you have to create them? And he said, yeah, you know, I think that we would. Meaning that if you think about this term symbiosis, it's really a biological term, meaning that you have one organism living off of another organism, and it provides some benefits to that host organism. Well, in this case, there's not necessarily a host and a parasite, but you've got these two organizations that are really feeding off of each other, and they're both getting better because of the strength of their rival or because of the strength of the other organization, right? So this rivalry has a symbiosis element to it, being that because the other club exists and it's a defined outgroup, it drives each club to get better and better to try and outdo their rivals. And in this case, it's not only on the pitch, although it's probably the most important element as it relates to fans, but also off the pitch in terms of revenue. These clubs have been recognized as the two highest grossing clubs in the world over the last few years, and they're always going back and forth and fighting for who can have that top slot of producing the most revenue in the world. You heard him mention several different players throughout history. One that I'll point out from the 1950s, Alfredo Di Stefano. He's an Argentinian player and has a very unique background to him. Argentinian football, professional football went on strike in the early 1950s. He left to go play in Colombia for a year since the Argentinian teams were not playing. And after that year, there were claims from both Barcelona and Real Madrid that they had transfer rights to this player. He was one of the best players in the world at the time, so they each submitted their claim to FIFA. Apparently he had signed, or his agent had signed, a deal with both clubs, and FIFA said, well, both of these appear to be valid. It's hard for us to adjudicate which one is more valid. So FIFA ruled that he had to play with one club, Real Madrid, for a season, and then he would transfer to Barcelona and play a season, and then he'd transfer back to Real Madrid and play a season. So he had to alternate seasons, and odd years play for one club, and in even years play for the other club. And that was the solution. I mean, think about how ridiculous that is today. If that was to happen with a free agent, Kevin Durant, two teams have claims for him. What if the NBA ruled, well, you know, we're not sure which one, so how about if Kevin Durant plays for Golden State one season, plays for Oklahoma City the next season, then back to Golden State, then back to Oklahoma City, right? I mean, it's just crazy nowadays. And Barcelona was not happy with that ruling, and the Barcelona president refused to abide by it. He relinquished rights to Alfredo, and he ended up playing only at Real Madrid, and then later became a famous manager for the club and is steeped in history there at Real Madrid. So as you can imagine, it just raised the tension within that rivalry even more. Another thing that we heard Sid Lowe talking about was the fact that there could be 2 or 4 or 6 El Clasicos in a season, which is something that we're not really used to. Like, why would there be 6 El Clasicos in one season, right? Or 6 matchups of rivals in one season? Well, those of you that are not familiar with how soccer works around the world, you've got league competition. So both these clubs are in the same league, so they will play each other in La Liga twice during the season. But you also have cup competitions within a country, and you have Champions League as well, and both of these clubs make the Champions League very regularly. And so if we look here, I just pulled up on Wikipedia real quick the results. And let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you. And you notice here that you've got league matches all time. You've got Copa del Rey, you've got Copa de la Liga, you've got a Supercopa in Spain, the Spanish Cup. You've got the Champions League where they've met previously. You've got some friendlies that they've played in. And so all time you see that Barcelona has a little bit of an edge on Real Madrid with 111 wins to 99. But when you look at friendlies, you see that Barcelona seems to take the friendlies perhaps a little bit more serious than Real Madrid and has a 16 match advantage there. So once you take friendlies out, in all competitions otherwise, you see that Real Madrid has just a slight advantage in this rivalry. So I mean, this is just another illustration of the fact that you've got lots of parity in this rivalry throughout history, right? One club might be up for a little while, but the other club's fighting to catch up with them, right? So certainly that's one thing that contributes to the rivalry itself. So the way that you could get 4 or even 6 matches in a season is you've got the 2 league matches. If these two teams happen to meet in the cup semifinals or finals, they could match up there. They've been matched up in the Champions League as well, playing against each other. And all of that can happen in the course of a single calendar year. So that's where you can get those extra matches. So why is this a rivalry? I always like to end discussion of individual rivalries with sort of a list of what makes this particular matchup between two teams a rivalry. Well, we just talked about parity, right? We just saw within that table that there's parity here. We've got certainly star power in this instance. Let's see if we can, let's just create a new slide here and make a list. Oops. We've got lots of star power on both sides of these clubs. What else do you think? Why are these clubs rivals? Well, they're the two best teams, which relates to parity, but also we've got the cultural conflict, cultural and political conflict, right, between what these two teams represent. So we've got what we'll call cultural difference. We've got a geographic element to this, right? These are the two biggest clubs in Europe. They're the biggest clubs in Spain. They happen to be in the same country, right? So, and they're in the two biggest cities in Spain. So that certainly contributes to the rivalry as well. Defining moments is another element that we could say. And by that, I mean matchups over the years when you've played another team as many times as they've played each other. There's bound to be famous goals. You know, even the transfer, we talked just about one particular player, Di Stefano, and his situation in the 1950s and how crazy it was, right? That's a defining moment in the rivalry as well. So we've got a pretty good list. Let me see if we're missing anything that I would put on here. I'd say also frequency of play, right? We talked about how they're going to play at least 2 times in a season, but most seasons, because these two clubs are so dominant, they end up making it up through the cup competitions and eventually meet each other in cup competitions somewhat frequently. Once in a while in the Champions League as well, they've met each other. So there's certainly a frequency of play between these two. They know each other very well. So I would say that adds to the rivalry as well. So we'll wrap it up there for this particular rivalry, and hopefully you enjoyed it. There is also, I will point out, there is also a video beyond the one that we watched, a little bit longer video from a series called Derby Days, and it looks at the El Clasico rivalry. So I will post that online along with this particular unit here.